The Flash episode 2 of season 9 aired. It aired. I don't my opinions are so different from Michael's, so I'm gonna let Michael go
I'm
first.
so ready for this discussion. Well, let me start by saying I have a thing for shows that do like the calm after the storm, or in this case, during the storm. And it definitely felt like this was the Flash's turn to do that. Very character driven episode, very like lower quality episode, very like lower budget episode. Not an awful lot was happening because there was an awful lot of like 2-on-2 scenes in the soaps. We would call those like two-hander scenes, where there's just like two sets of two characters, conversations aplenty as the storm goes on outside, and it was a lot of fun. I do think with an episode like this you needed maybe a bigger explosion, like the premiere wasn't that big to warrant an episode like this to come after it, but I mean, it worked. It's not the best example of it, but it worked. The thing I don't like, and this is a shocker, and it didn't feel like a shocker, is that Danielle Panabaker's new character, who he originally called Snow, and we now know is Keon.
What?
Keon, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Replaces Caitlin because Caitlin is apparently dead. And they had no time to mourn her because they were all like, "Welcome to the fam, Keon." And
I'm sorry, I didn't mean
yeah.
to laugh.
That's a little funny. Just the dead.
I love the character. I really do. I really like the character. But so have we really killed off a season 1 regular character the whole way through because she's morphed into a different character? And it's all right. You look like Caitlin. You sound like Caitlin. Caitlin's not dead, even though Caitlin is dead. So
How does this keep happening to her?
I don't know.
Every time you talk about it, it's like a different character.
So a long story short, in season 4, I think we found out that Frost that was living within Caitlin was actually a separate entity created by her father. But it turns out that her father wanted to create another Caitlin that was called Keon, and we all thought Frost was that, but now it turns out Frost wasn't the real version of it. This is the real version of it, but this version doesn't have any ice powers or whatever. So I don't know what we're doing here. The only thing she has is like the blue like dip dye in her hair, and how is that related to Frost? You know what I mean? So I don't really get it. I love the character. She comes across as really nice, but I don't like the fact they've killed off a character. Frost got such a funeral, such an aftermath, such a mourning period, and we've already been told that because this is the final season of The Flash and their episode count was a cut, Caitlin's not going to get any of that. Now, I loved Frost, but Caitlin was a far more important character to The Flash, and you're telling me we don't have any time to mourn the character just because there's a lookalike now in her place? Don't like that in the slightest. But yeah, I'll not rant too much because there's plenty of conversation to be had. But all I'll say is I like the character, I like the dynamic, and I like the conversations they had around her. Didn't really enjoy the lack of West Allen in the episode, but I did like that they were at least working together on the same storyline and not paired off in different directions. What do you think about that, Sabrina?
Well, just to touch on Caitlin real quick, I think it's strange. When I read that interview by Danielle Panabaker, I thought it was strange that she was told that there would not be enough time to properly mourn Caitlin because, like you mentioned, they had spent so much time mourning Frost, and Caitlin is a day one, but also her mother is still canonly in the show. So it just seems, I mean, not to say that she might not pop up, she probably could, but the idea that they were really weighing to bring Caitlin or Frost back, like that's a serious question you can answer in like a roundtable style, give your best reason for why this person should come back, was disrespectful. And I think it was disrespectful primarily because this should have been, if it's Caitlin's death episode, it should have just been about Caitlin.
Mm-hmm. And but like, how are they going to say there's not enough time when you can just do like a 30-second morning montage?
Because they did that. They spent, I'm assuming they spent three episodes, right, on Frost. With also a big funeral episode, and they do not want to take that time because they have limited time in season 9. That's why it's disrespectful.
But I'm just saying, why does it have to be that extensive?
Because it's what she be due, and I guess they just don't want to do. To be honest, to be frank, I don't think they care to do it.
Yeah, on paper, this sounds good, but the execution let it down. Is that basically they said Caitlin wanted to bring back Frost. This was Caitlin's choice to do this, and Barry refusing to help her drove her to this. So she wanted to bring back Frost, and that ultimately birthed this character known as Keown. And so they were presented with the opportunity that they can either apparently bring Caitlin back or bring Frost back, which would then kill Keown. But they couldn't bring back the both of them. So then they had to, like, everyone had to choose between Caitlin and Frost. And I find that disrespectful as well, because I'm sorry, Allegra can say, yay, Frost. Chester can say, yay, Caitlin. Iris can say, yay, Frost. And I don't think any of them really justified it, because yes, they picked their friend, but they also discarded the other one. And that was quite disrespectful to a character that's been in it since season 1. But anyway, long story short, they decided not to let Keown make her own decision. And she was like, I'm going to live my life happily because this is what Caitlin would have wanted. And yeah, theoretically, that's true. They're all like, welcome to the fam, Keown. But they're like accepting it as like a tribute to Caitlin, that this is what Caitlin would have wanted. And that's quite respectful. But on the other hand, they didn't actually mourn the fact that their friend is gone. So what if her legacy is right in front of you? This person you've known for a decade died trying to bring her back, and not a single tear was shed. That sounds disrespectful, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and then there's no examination of that having been a trauma/grief response from Caitlin. Because she had, like, Frost was her sister, and at one point had been living in her head. Like this, they had a extreme connection to one another. So of course she would have wanted to bring her sister back. Like the whole point would have been to help her get through the loss, rather than spinning that loss and what happened next as a means of honoring who she is as a person. And I just didn't care for it. I also, the reason they gave Iris for why she picked Frost wasn't it either. I mean, I am someone who just doesn't believe that Caitlin and Iris were ever really friends. I think they're family because Caitlin is Barry's family. And they always tried to force it in the show, and I just didn't really think that was realistic. It was fine for them not to be friends. It was fine for them to be cordial and friendly and both love Barry. And therefore they're in the same family. So the idea that, like, I'm choosing Frost because I didn't choose Frost the first time, I was like, it would have been better if she said she chose Frost because that's her friend. Like, I just would have preferred that. They weren't going to have her laid out to Barry about Caitlin and I don't see it for each other, because that's really not a reason not to bring her back. But to say Frost is important to me, I want to bring Frost back. Frost is just as much as family to me as Caitlin is family to you, would have been fine. But again, it's just a conversation. None of them should have had it at all. It shouldn't have happened. But as far as the West Allen, it was okay. We didn't really get them until the end scene, which that dance party in the club was so cute. I just really loved it. And I also felt like Grant and Candace broke character like several times, because that seemed more like those two than it did Iris and Barry. But I also felt like the only reason why Hartley had a club was so that we could have that end scene in said club, because that's his club, is it not?
That's actually one of the reasons I really enjoyed most of this episode, because yes, there were tons of plot holes. I totally agree with that, but it felt kind of like one of those darker season 1 episodes where they would take some time to talk about something, and then you'd have all these like supporting characters you knew from season 1, and then so many, and it's such a nice ending with Barry and Iris as well. Definitely feels like something you would have seen in the show's earlier days. The execution of the episode wasn't as strong as they were back then, but aside from that, the episode felt great. But yes, on the Hartley note, thrilled to say him. He should have been a series regular the whole time. Give me him over Chester and Allegra any day of the week. And yep, I said it.
Shots
and I'll
fired.
say it again. Do you need me to say it again? Yeah, Hartley, love them. Glad to have the Pied Piper back. Yeah, his nightclub really had absolutely no purpose whatsoever, other than the fact they needed speakers for the fiddler to show up. And
what were they celebrating in that scene? Sabrina sent me the clips and I enjoyed it, but I was like, what was the purpose?
See, now we were just clapping. We were just clapping. There was no reason that
Caitlin's dead, but let's go out and have a good time.
I know. I was like, I was gonna ask you. I was like, that it didn't connect with me, but I mean, whatever.
Story of the show.
Yeah, material for the fan cams. I get
it. they got away with it because they brought Keown to the nightclub as well, so she got to dance. So Danielle Panabaker was there, even though it wasn't Caitlin. Again, there's some loopholes in the storyline. But yes, great to see Hartley back. I'm glad we're going to get to see him next week as well. It's nice to me that he got to bond with Keon, because him and Caitlin had such a unique dynamic. They didn't really get on that much, so it's nice that he already had those walls up as far as Keon goes, and then at the end of the episode, he was the one that insisted that she gets to make her own choice because she was nice to him. I hope we get to see more of that dynamic because that was really, really sweet. I love Pied Piper. I wish we'd seen more of him over the run. I hope next week's episode isn't the last we see of him. But I'm glad he finally gets to stick around, even if, albeit as a temporary member of Team Flash. Because yeah, more Hartley's definitely a good thing.
It was so dramatic when he went to go save her from Chilblain, walking through the lab and just basically screaming to break what was that? The CRC machine? I don't remember what they referred to it as. Reed, so there's this machine that they wanted to put Keon in because to use that machine would bring back either Frost or Caitlin. The science is not sciencing, but we're just going to accept it. But that's what they had been arguing about for the entire episode, was once they found out that Mark was lying about being able to bring both Caitlin and Frost back, then they all were trying to decide to who they wanted to bring back, not really respecting that Keon is her own person now. Now I understand why Savitar was the way that he was in terms of being a time remnant, because if they would treat Keon like that, as if she's basically just a body for Caitlin to inhabit again, then yeah, I believe time remnant Barry, who turns into Savitar, when he said they treated him like trash, because it happened.
You're like, the villain was right all along.
Yes, who would know? 6 seasons later. Vindication.
Who would have thought?
No.
But yeah, it was super dramatic with Hartley to unleash like his canary cry on the machine just to destroy it. It made a point. It was a tad over the top, but it made the point. But also, speaking of Keon, what's interesting to me is she has no powers. However, the storm played such an important role in the episode when everybody was saying, longest day ever, what a day, we're having such a bad day. And then when Keon got to make her choice, the sun came out. Now, if you remember in the middle of the episode when Keon was talking to Cecile, she was touching the window as the storm was coming down and said she felt incredibly connected to nature. So can Keon control the weather? Can she make it rain? Can she make the sun come out? That'd be interesting. And I feel like the fact that Cecile can't read her thoughts definitely means there's more to this character than we know so far.
I'm thinking water. Because like Frost was, of course, frozen water. So if Keon's supposed to be more free-spirited and empathic, and generally goes with the flow of things, would make sense that her element would be water. And also, I guess some sciencey things with the brain and how being able to keep Cecile out that way. At least someone can. At least someone can keep Cecile from their thoughts.
Okay, I see Cecile on the outline, and I want to know if this is her weekly dragging.
So it's more so, I struggle with her every time she pops up on screen. But there's this scene towards the beginning of the episode where Joe is like, we need to leave town because the more powerful you get, the more you're likely to be on the front lines. And I was like, Joe, is superheroing in Central City is not tier-based. She's always on the front lines, for one. And for two, this show is called The Flash. So she will never be in as much danger as Barry is. Not to mention, she's been hopping around crime fighting with them for a while. Why is now the time where he's like, I'm scared for my life partner? Which, now that I think about it, they're not married yet.
Are they not? I can't remember.
They're not.
What is her power? I thought all she did was like levitate mugs or something.
Telekinesis, and she's incredibly empathic, but to the point where she's starting to read not just people's emotions, but like not their thoughts, but enough to be accurate about what it is they're scared about or happy about, which is a little confusing because she always assumes she knows people's motivations based on how she feels their feelings coming towards her.
She's like, I can read people's energy and their vibes.
Yes.
That's exactly.
Cecile, calm down.
Yes. So she always assumes she knows why they're feeling that way. And then the writing backs her up. And I'm just like, that's not how that works.
Have you ever seen those TikToks where it's like, if you landed on this video, it's for you, and they like read tarot cards? I feel like she would do that if she was on TikTok.
Yes.
She would. She kind of inflicts herself on people. Now, I don't hate Cecile as much as everyone else seems to, but she does kind of inflict herself on people, and that's why people kind of like turned against her, because she was just the recurring DA in the first 3 seasons, and then when she became a series regular in season 4, she'd literally walk into a room. It was like, I'm getting bad vibes, or what are you telling me?
I almost have to stand though.
Just to defy.
Yeah, like she's just like so ridiculous that like I have to stand, maybe. I don't know.
I think I wouldn't dislike her as much if she wasn't used as a means of furthering the plot. Like she really is sort of like the exposition in human form. So instead of them just like what they used to do is the characters would talk through their feeling. Now we can just be expedient and have Cecile tell you what they're feeling and then just agree. And then we move on. And it's boring and terrible.
And it was such a genius device at the start, because she first got her powers in season 4, and that helped them defeat the Thinker. 2 minds going against each other made total sense. But ever since then, they've done nothing with her, and now it feels like they're trying to rush us in the last minute to make her the most powerful meta in Central City. And again, the Flash defused a nuclear bomb last week. That ain't happening. The Flash is supposed to be the most powerful meta. I will say the scene between her and Joe, the acting sold it for me. Jesse and Danielle Nicolette did a great job in that scene. I kind of wish we saw more, just because they really got like really like powerful performances in such a short amount of time. That sold it more than the material for me, because I still don't really get where Joe's coming from. I get that he wants to protect Cecile, but at the same time, the rest of his family are going to be in jeopardy every day of the week. Why not stay and help them fight it to avoid them getting into danger?
They're probably just trying to write him out, right? Because
They
he's
are.
not in the full season. So
but I wish we had better material.
Make it look less obvious on screen.
Yes.
I love when they're like planning on writing characters out and they're like, oh my God, I got this internship in Paris. And it's like, okay, that came out on thin air.
See, but that would be better, because his excuse would be, oh, my son Wally called me. Let me go on over to where Wally is. Because he did that one time. Like, remember when Jesse had hurt his back, and so what they did was they sent his character to Tibet with Wally, and that's why he needed a break. He was feeling like it was too much, and so he went to go spend time with his son at a monastery. Were we at a monastery? Or we just didn't
think so. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure Wally was at a monastery at one point, so maybe.
This show.
So that made more sense. This story bit for him is not it. But next week we're going to have to control ourselves, because Reed, the hotness is back.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's going to be a good one. But yeah, all in all, I enjoyed the episode. Very flawed, so I'd give it maybe like a 7.5. Not really in the same league as last week's 9 I'd give the premiere. So solid, but it could have been better.
I'm at a 5, but that's okay. But I mean, like, to be fair to them, I always struggle with Caitlyn's specific episodes as it is, because I just don't really. She's not my favorite, and so I always struggle with her episodes. But I will say I do like Keon, and I thought that she was a breath of fresh air in the show. She is bringing something different. I think Danielle Panabaker is outselling with that character. That was a very hard role to play, and she's doing very excellently with it. And I just need more silent content to balance this out. That ending dance scene, I need more fun stuff. Since it's
more of that, yeah.
It's apparently the best Baby Moon ever, so I want to see more Baby Moon adventures.
Yeah. Don't do a Cecile and tell us how they're feeling. Show us.
Yes.